a casual hoodie, a luxury showroom, and one jaw-dropping reveal: what happens when a car dealership manager misjudges the man who secretly owns it all. Jamal stepped out of his unassuming crossover SUV, parking at the far edge of the Royal Auto Gallery lot in Santa Monica, California. The sun bounced off the polished hoods of imported luxury cars, each one gleaming under the clear coastal sky like trophies on display. Jamal adjusted the sleeves of his faded navy hoodie, ran a hand across the front of his jeans, and pushed open the glass doors with quiet intention. The chill of the air conditioning wrapped around him instantly, mingling with the scent of new leather and fresh detail wax. He moved further inside, letting his gaze drift casually over the lineup of high-end models. From the corner of his eye, he caught the way conversations near the reception desk stalled. Employees swapped glances, eyes flickering toward his sneakers and worn hoodie with that unmistakable cocktail of curiosity and silent judgment. Jamal had seen this play out before, countless times. But this time, it was personal. Then came her voice, sharp, efficient, and with just enough edge to let him know she meant business. Linda. Early 50s, silver bob haircut, dark slacks, and a fitted blazer that screamed upper management. The clipboard tucked under her arm only added to the image. She approached him with a step that could slice concrete, her smile all politeness on the surface but cold just underneath. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I assist you with something specific?" Her words sounded helpful but carried the weight of doubt. Jamal returned her smile, calm and unbothered. "Just browsing, thanks," he said, keeping his tone light. Linda's eyes narrowed slightly, scanning him again as if double-checking her first impression. "Browsing? At Royal Auto Gallery?" She tilted her head. "Most of our vehicles here start around 200 grand, she said, her voice lowering as though sharing a secret only meant for him. "We typically require prior qualification before allowing customers to schedule test drives or vehicle inspections." Jamal's smile didn't flicker. "That's so," he replied, glancing toward a matte black coupe by the front window. Linda took a step closer, lowering her voice, but letting the condescension stay. "Of course, if you're just here to look, that's fine. But for serious inquiries, we'd need to schedule you with a sales specialist," another employee called from across the showroom, breaking her focus for just a beat. Linda's eyes snapped back, making sure Jamal hadn't wandered off near the inventory she clearly felt he had no business touching. When he reached out and let his fingers lightly graze the side mirror of a sleek sport model, her reaction was immediate. "Sir, I'll kindly ask you not to handle the vehicles," she said, keeping her tone professional, but unmistakably tight. Jamal nodded slowly, withdrawing his hand, still keeping that same unreadable half-smile on his face. "No problem, just admiring the craftsmanship." Linda offered another tight smile, shifting her clipboard under her arm. "Perhaps if you'd like, I can direct you toward our pre-owned inventory section," she added, with a little too much sweetness. Jamal exhaled softly, rocking back on his heels, making no move to leave but also giving her no indication that he was fazed. The whole exchange had been exactly what he came for. Without giving her the satisfaction of a reaction, he slipped his phone from his pocket, tapped a few times on the screen, and said quietly, "I think it's time I speak with the general manager." Linda blinked, caught off guard for the first time. "Oh, and one more thing," Jamal added, his eyes locking onto hers as he slipped his phone back into his hoodie pocket. "Tell them Mr. Jamal Turner is ready for his management walkthrough." The color drained from her face before she could stop it. "Let's hear it. What would you recommend for someone like me?" Linda froze for just a second, caught off guard by Jamal's directness, but she recovered quickly, shifting her clipboard and flashing a tight smile. "If you're open to suggestions," she began, her tone walking a fine line between polite and patronizing. Before she could continue, Jamal added calmly, "If you think you know what fits me, I'm listening." Her expression wavered, just enough for Jamal to catch it. "Maybe something a bit more budget-conscious?" Linda offered, her words slow, deliberate. "I could point you toward a dealership across town that focuses on certified pre-owned vehicles." Jamal's smile was faint, but it never touched his eyes. "That's quite the assumption," he said evenly, letting the words sit there just long enough for the meaning to land. Linda's posture stiffened for a split second before she cleared her throat and straightened her blazer. I'll be back with some recommendations, she said briskly, turning on her heel and walking toward her office with practiced efficiency. Jamal watched her go, hands casually tucked into his hoodie pocket, his gaze drifting back to the matte black coupe parked near the front. His reflection stared back at him from the polished surface, and he knew right then this day was about to get interesting. The hum of casual chatter resumed around him, but every now and then he caught sideways glances from the staff. The quiet assessments, the unspoken judgments, the same pattern he'd experienced more times than he cared to count. When Linda returned, she held a small stack of printouts, clutching them like armor. Her stride was brisk, her smile even tighter than before. "All right," she said, stopping a few feet in front of him. "I've put together a few vehicles I think would be a better fit for your situation." Jamal tilted his head slightly. "My situation, huh?" She gave a single nod, flipping through the papers before handing them over. Each listing showcased pre-owned models: a 10-year-old sedan, a mid-range SUV with high mileage, a compact hybrid with modest features. Practical choices, affordable choices, none of them remotely close to the six-figure cars on display around them. Jamal skimmed the pages, then folded them neatly and tucked them into his pocket with a nod. "Thanks for putting this together," he said, his tone measured. Linda blinked, momentarily disarmed by his calmness. But she wasn't done. She planted her hands on her hips, her voice lowering like she was sharing an insider tip. "I'm just trying to be upfront with you. Royal Auto Gallery isn't for everyone. I don't want to waste your time, or ours." Jamal met her gaze, steady, controlled. "And what makes you so sure I'm not exactly the kind of customer you want here?" Linda hesitated for a beat. "I've been doing this for years," she said, crossing her arms. "You get a sense for who's out of their depth." "Out of their depth," Jamal repeated slowly, like he was tasting the words. "That's interesting." A flicker of something, uncertainty maybe, passed over Linda's face. But she pushed forward anyway. "I'm just being honest. It's better to be upfront than to let someone leave disappointed." Jamal let out a low chuckle, shaking his head with a mix of disbelief and amusement. "Honest, huh? I can appreciate that. How about this? Why don't you get me in touch with the owner? Think we can make that happen?" Linda's eyebrows shot up, her composure slipping for the first time. "The owner?" she repeated, blinking. "That's right," Jamal replied, keeping his tone light, but with just enough weight to make her pause. "I'd like to have a word with them." Linda's smile turned stiff, almost strained. "That won't be possible today. The owner doesn't just stroll in for casual chats. They're a very busy individual." "I'm sure they are," Jamal said with a slow nod. "But maybe you could give them a call. Let them know I'm here?" "I have a feeling they'd want to know." Linda's shoulders tensed as her patience wore thin. "Look, sir, I've been trying to handle this as politely as possible, but this is getting out of hand. I have other clients to help. If you're serious about making a purchase, we can set up a consultation with one of our sales associates. Otherwise..." "Otherwise what?" Jamal asked, his voice still calm but now laced with something sharper. Linda's expression hardened. "Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Her words landed like a dropped weight in the center of the room. Jamal didn't move. He just stood there, holding her gaze without blinking. The air thickened, every conversation in the showroom grinding to a halt as employees began to turn their heads toward the confrontation. Jamal slowly reached into the pocket of his hoodie and pulled out his phone. "All right then," he said casually, scrolling through his contacts with one thumb. "I'll just give them a ring myself." Linda's eyes narrowed, her confusion flickering just beneath her frustration. "What are you doing?" she asked, crossing her arms tightly. "Just calling the owner," Jamal said smoothly, lifting the phone to his ear. "Shouldn't take more than a minute." Linda opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Across the showroom, sales reps abandoned their fake smiles, now openly watching. A couple of them exchanged wide-eyed glances. Jamal raised a finger, signaling Linda to hold on, as he turned slightly away and spoke into the phone. "Hey, it's me. I'm at the Scottsdale location right now. Everything's fine, just a bit of confusion. Could you let them know I'm here?" He ended the call, slid the phone back into his pocket, and turned back to Linda with a small, knowing smile. "They'll be here shortly," he said simply. Linda stared at him, her lips parting as she stammered, "Who did you just call?" Jamal didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowly scanned the room, making brief eye contact with a few staff members who quickly dropped their gazes. "Guess we'll find out," he said, his tone almost teasing. The tension stretched tight like a pulled wire. Linda fidgeted with her clipboard, flipping pages she wasn't reading, her posture rigid now. Jamal, in contrast, leaned casually against a nearby display, utterly at ease, like he'd been here before. Minutes crawled by, the air in the room growing heavier. Every employee in the building was now half working, half watching, whispering behind hands, making bets under their breath. The sudden whoosh of the main doors swinging open sliced through the awkward silence. A sharply dressed man in a tailored navy suit strode in, polished leather shoes clicking against the tile floor like punctuation marks. His expression was serious, but welcoming, and the moment his eyes landed on Jamal, a wide smile broke across his face. "Mr. Harris," the man called out, extending his hand as he crossed the showroom floor. "Great to see you." Jamal returned the handshake with a steady grip, the corners of his mouth curling into a small, knowing smile. "Thanks for coming over, Marcus. Appreciate it." The entire showroom seemed to freeze mid-motion. Linda's clipboard slipped slightly from her grasp, her eyes darting between Jamal and Marcus, the dealership's regional director. Confusion flickered across her face before giving way to something that looked dangerously close to panic. "Mr. Harris?" she echoed, her voice catching. Marcus turned to her, his easy smile fading into something more clipped, more businesslike. "I take it you've already met Mr. Harris?" Linda swallowed hard, color draining from her face. "I didn't realize. You didn't realize he's the new owner of this entire dealership group." Marcus finished for her, his tone now sharp and unmistakably disappointed. He shot Jamal an apologetic glance. "I imagine this wasn't exactly the welcome you had in mind?" Jamal lifted a hand, stopping him mid-apology. "It's all good, Marcus. I think Linda and I just had a bit of miscommunication." His voice stayed smooth and controlled, but there was no mistaking the weight behind his words. Linda's face turned ghostly pale as she hugged her clipboard to her chest like a shield. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, barely above a whisper. "I didn't know." "You didn't know what?" Jamal asked, tilting his head slightly. "That someone dressed like me could own a place like this? That someone like me belonged here?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Linda's eyes widened, her mouth moving without sound, as if trying to find the right thing to say, and failing miserably. "I didn't mean—" Jamal raised his hand again, silencing her mid-sentence. "It's fine, Linda." He took a single step closer, lowering his voice just enough that everyone in earshot leaned in to catch every word. "But let me ask you something. If I wasn't the owner, would you have treated me the same way? Would you have given me the same respect you'd show a guy walking in here in a three-piece suit and driving a sports car?" Linda opened her mouth to answer, but nothing came out. The silence that followed was deafening. Jamal gave a slow, almost sad nod, as if her inability to respond was answer enough. Turning to Marcus, he let his voice carry through the entire showroom. "Let's get everyone together in the conference room. I think we need to have a serious conversation about customer service standards around here." Without waiting for a reply, Jamal headed toward the glass-walled conference room at the end of the showroom. The staff followed, tension buzzing in the air like electricity. The modern decor suddenly felt cold and claustrophobic, and everyone knew the tone of the meeting about to happen wouldn't be anything like business as usual. Susan sat toward the back, her usual air of authority replaced by visible discomfort. Jamal stood confidently at the head of the conference table, his posture calm, his gaze steady. Marcus lingered near the doorway, arms folded, observing the staff as they settled into their seats. The low hum of whispers faded the moment Jamal cleared his throat, commanding the attention of every person in the room. "Thanks for coming together on short notice," he began, his tone even but unmistakably firm. "For those who haven't met me yet, I'm Jamal Harris, and as of last month, I'm the new owner of Summit Luxury Motors." A wave of murmurs rippled across the room, ranging from surprise to embarrassment. Susan shifted lower in her chair, keeping her eyes locked on the floor. Jamal continued, his voice steady and direct. "I showed up today dressed the way I did for a reason. I wanted to see how this place really operates when nobody knows who's watching. I wanted to understand how customers, especially the ones who don't fit the typical image, are treated the moment they walk through those doors." He paused, letting the weight of his words fill the air. "What I saw today was disappointing. I wasn't judged on who I am or what I bring to the table. I was judged on what I looked like." His eyes flicked briefly toward Susan, but quickly returned to the group. "This isn't about calling out individuals," he said. "This is about addressing a culture that allows snap judgments and bias to dictate how we treat people." Susan shifted in her seat again, her face flushing deep red. Jamal continued, locking eyes with different team members around the room. "This isn't just about me. It's about every customer who's ever been looked up and down and dismissed before they could even speak. It's about the person walking in for the first time who may not look the part, but is more than qualified to be here." A younger salesman near the middle nervously raised his hand. Jamal nodded at him. "Mr. Harris," the guy started cautiously, "I think most of us, we try to treat everyone right. But sometimes it's like, I don't know, instinct. It's hard not to size people up." Jamal nodded, acknowledging the honesty. "I get it. We've all got unconscious biases. We're human. But that doesn't mean we let those biases control how we do business. It's not enough to say we try to be fair. We have to actively work at it, challenge ourselves, check our assumptions at the door." He let that sink in for a beat before continuing. "This dealership built its reputation on offering excellence. But excellence isn't just about selling high-end cars. It's about the experience we deliver from the first hello to the final handshake. And moving forward, that experience will be built on respect, on inclusion, on fairness." Around the room, heads nodded. A few staff members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but most listened with genuine reflection. Jamal stood taller, signaling the meeting was about to wrap. "Change starts today," he said, "because every customer who walks through that door deserves the benefit of the doubt, the respect of this team, and a chance to be seen for who they really are, not what you assume they are." Jamal's gaze landed on Susan, who sat rigidly near the back, her hands clasped tightly in her lap like she was bracing for impact. "Susan," he said, his voice steady but not unkind, "I'd like to give you a chance to speak. Is there anything you want to say?" Every eye in the room turned toward her. She hesitated for a long second, swallowing hard before her voice finally emerged, soft and unsteady. "I made a mistake," she said, her cheeks flushed deep red. "I misjudged you, and I'm truly sorry for that." Jamal gave a slow nod, his expression unreadable but his tone steady. "Thank you for saying that," he replied. "Let this be a reminder, for all of us, that real change starts with accountability." Turning back to the entire group, Jamal's voice grew stronger, filling the room with quiet authority. "Moving forward, we're implementing new training standards to make sure this dealership reflects the values I believe in. Every customer who walks through those doors deserves respect and dignity. No exceptions. If anyone here has a problem with that, now's the time to speak." Silence followed. Thick, heavy silence, broken only by the low hum of the air conditioning. Jamal let it hang there just long enough to make sure the weight of his words settled over everyone. Then he spoke again, calm but with unmistakable finality. "I'm glad to see we're on the same page. Change isn't easy, but it's necessary, and this dealership is going to set the example for what real customer service and integrity look like." He stepped forward, resting both hands lightly on the edge of the conference table, leaning in just enough to command full attention. "Let me be clear about something," he continued. "I didn't come here today to embarrass anyone. I came to see what kind of culture I inherited. Now that I know, we're going to make it better." His gaze drifted back to Susan, and his tone softened, not with weakness, but with measured understanding. "Susan, you're an experienced leader. I'm sure you've worked hard to get where you are. But today was a wake-up call. Not just for you, but for this entire team." Susan finally lifted her eyes, meeting his gaze directly for the first time since the meeting started. "I understand," she said, her voice shaking but sincere. "I was wrong, and I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." Jamal nodded once. "I believe in second chances," he said plainly. "But accountability comes first. You and I will meet one-on-one soon to go over next steps. For now, let's focus on moving forward." Straightening his posture, Jamal addressed the entire room one final time. "We're not just here to sell cars. We're here to build trust, to create relationships, and to represent a level of excellence this brand deserves. If you're with me on that, I'll have your back every step of the way." This time, the murmurs of agreement were louder, more genuine. A few people even nodded. The tension that had gripped the room slowly began to lift. Even Marcus, who had stayed near the door with his arms crossed, gave an approving nod. Jamal allowed himself a faint smile, the kind that spoke of relief and resolve all at once. "All right then, let's get back to work. And remember, how we treat people matters more than anything we sell." As the team filed out, some in quiet reflection and others already chatting in low tones, Susan lingered near the door. She hesitated, then stepped closer. "Mr. Harris?" she said softly, her voice low, almost unsure. "I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to make this right. I won't let you down." Susan's voice wavered slightly, but the sincerity in her eyes was unmistakable. Jamal studied her for a moment, his expression steady but thoughtful. "I hope you mean that, Susan," he said finally. "Words are easy. Change takes work. But I do believe people can grow, if they're willing to put in the effort." She gave a determined nod. "I am. I will." Jamal gave her a small, acknowledging nod as she turned and left the conference room, her footsteps quieter than before. As the door closed behind her, Jamal turned to Marcus. "Let's schedule a full staff meeting for next week," his tone shifting back into business mode. "I want to lay out clear expectations for everyone going forward." Marcus gave a wide grin, the respect in his eyes clear. "Absolutely, boss. Consider it done." Jamal stepped back into the main showroom. The afternoon sun streamed through the large glass windows, bouncing off the polished cars and casting sharp reflections across the floor. He took a slow breath, letting his gaze sweep over the room, the staff moving about, the hum of conversation returning, the subtle shift in atmosphere already beginning to take root. There was a lot of work ahead. Changing culture wasn't about one speech or one confrontation. It was a process, a daily commitment. But for the first time that day, Jamal felt something different. This wasn't just about selling high-end vehicles. It was about building something bigger, a place where people were measured by their integrity, their effort, and how they treated others. A place where assumptions had no place and respect wasn't optional. And as Jamal walked past the gleaming lineup of cars, hands in his pockets, he knew one thing for certain. He was ready to lead that change.